up just a little bit. Here's a piece I've just finished turning. It's basically Bedrone in the body with one of my standard transitional pieces. And I just wanted to show you what the process is that I go through. This is almost ready to put a coat of finish on. I generally am able to take my tool work down to the point that I've got the shape just right. I've created a parting cut at the bottom of the base so I can see how it completes. And my first sanding step generally is a piece of 180 cloth. And with that, I can follow the curve here and blend out any little errors that may have happened or still show. Less than 1,000 RPM. So it's just a little bit of constantly moving sanding. The other thing I always do, I have a curve in the neck. The curves have to fit the shape of my finger. If my finger can't fit in there, I can't sand it properly. So I just 180 lightly. I always wipe the sawdust off because I don't want any 180 grit remaining for what I do next. So the next I go to 220, but now I've gone to my reciprocal sander. This is one of these devices that has a ball bearing in it, and as it pushes against the wood, it rotates the opposite direction. It randomizes the scratch pattern. So this is 220. And I generally leave this on this device. I have several different shapes, but they're all the same. Touching just the edge. Come up as far as I can. I've got to go back the other direction in this area here. And because this is soft and flexible, I'm actually able to get up into the neck. Unfortunately, I can't get inside. That's a little manual work. 220 grit stays on here for a long time as I go through all the coats. The next thing I go to is 4/0 steel wool. Don't go to the hardware store. Go to a woodworking dealer and buy one from a reputable dealer. The stuff from the woodworking store has been made without the use of any oils. The ones in the hardware store tend to leave something on the finish. So I folded this up, cut a piece off of the roll, and just scissors works fine. And I folded the ends in. These ends can catch on a small burr and rip this right out of your fingers. Steel wool, unlike sandpaper, doesn't scratch. It cuts. So think of this like a series of very small planes cleaning up the surface. Now, camera won't show this very well, but I can see that this is actually shining now, and I can see a little bit of sawdust coming off. And that's ready to get a coat of finish. So for finishing, I use my Minwax. I generally find that these small pieces take very little finish. So I transfer it into one of these little cups, which I get at one of the discount grocers. And I go to the hardware store, not the hardware store, the drugstore, and I go down into the fashion section, and I pick up a box of these makeup sponges. They are little triangles, they're closed cell foam, they come in packs of 10, 20, 50, and they're very inexpensive. So lay speed down so it doesn't fling it at me. And basically finishing for me is multiple activities like this. Now the first coat goes on, soaks in a little bit, and I can see on the base already that it's soaked in. So I would continue on this first application to keep applying and keep applying until it's saturated. Now it looks great and shiny right now, but it's not going to stay that way. After it's soaked in for a little bit, I'll pick up the excess. And this is coat number 1. Now you might like that look, and that's fine. So it has a nice shine to it. It's a little sheeny. This goes outside, dries for 24 hours. It goes back on the lathe tomorrow, and I do it all over again. And I'm going to keep doing that all over again until all the pores have been filled up to the level of the surface. And then I start building my high gloss. A few years ago, I made up a bunch of sample boards for a different class, and this was oak flooring. And I know you can't see this, but holding it in the lights, I can see reflections off the surface. We have sealed the surface, and every pore in this piece of oak is available for me to see. I'm going to sand this down, put another coat on until all those potholes are filled up level to the surface. It's a key to this kind of finishing technique. Think of repaving your street. You have a couple of potholes, and you're going to put down new paving. You fill the potholes first, and then lay down your very smooth top coat. If you didn't, you'd still have the bumps, in this case pores, still showing through. So this goes aside, it dries, and after 24 hours, I bring it back. I'm generally doing several pieces at a time, and as you can see, I leave them on the faceplate until everything is to my satisfaction. So here's how fast the next coat goes. Steel wool's at hand, sanders at hand. Yeah, I'm taking the finish down as far as I can, and it's all going away. And I will do this. This happens to be redwood burl. And I will suggest on redwood burls it's probably 12 to 15 times. Steel wool. I can see the steel wool pulling that sawdust right off the surface. And I can see it putting a sheen right back on that wood again. And if I turn this off, wipe it down, and look very closely with the light at the right angles, I can tell if all those pores have been filled right to the surface. If I can't tell, I'm going to go outside in the sunlight and do it. But the glancing light off the surface is what helps me know what the pores are filled. On this particular piece, I'm pretty close, but it could use another coat. And this is how fast it goes. And that piece is done for another day. So what I'm going to do is put this piece outdoors also and go to the next piece. And eventually I'm going to have that surface completely pore filled and finished like this. And when I get to that point, I'm looking. I see a place where it's still soaking in. There's a place that is dull, not shiny, right there, where the wood is still picking up finish. So that tells me I've got more work to do on this piece. Now there's an anomaly right here. It's a little bark inclusion. I'm never going to get that filled, and it's just part of the piece, and it's going to be part of the attractiveness of this particular piece. But that one's ready to go dry. So when we get done, and we've got all the surfaces the way we want it, I could buff it at this point and then part it off, but I want to do something to the bottom also. So I'm going to part it off, work on the bottom, and then go to the buffing system. So let me show you how I get this off of the lathe. Put this stuff away because we don't need finish on this piece. And I'm going to go to a vacuum chuck, which is my preferred way to remove these. And I do it because I have a number of different vacuum chucks that I have made up for different sizes. This one I know just fits this piece. So I'll bring up my tailstock on which the one-way live center is mounted, and I've got the thread adapter on there. And because of the thread adapter, oops, sorry about that, this allows me to slide it into the vacuum chuck perfectly centered. It's ready to go. So I'm going to reach around, turn the vacuum chuck on. That's going to suck this piece in, and then I'll be able to part this bottom off. So let me part Okay, vacuum chuck is on. I'm looking at the gauge. I'm getting a relatively decent vacuum. Because I do so many pieces that have voids in them, I'm running my fingers over, feeling for places where it's leaking, and right there's a spot. My finger gets sucked into the pores because air is being pulled in through this bark inclusion area. Right there, I'm losing vacuum. When I put my finger on it, I can see the gauge go up. So I have to seal that, to part that off. So what I'm going to do is stop for a second, go get some blue tape, which won't leave a problem on the finish, and simply put it over those spots where there might be a vacuum leak. Give me a second, I'll be right back. Okay, I found the spots where the vacuum is sucking my finger in through the bark inclusion. Here's one. A little piece of blue tape will protect that. And on this side there's a bigger one. And all I have to do is put a piece of blue tape up over that. And that'll cause the vacuum gauge to go up farther. And I'm ready now to part off. Tool rest. Parting tool. I'm using a very small parting tool. Now what's going to happen as we turn this on, I'm going to part through here, and what will happen is the tailstock part will just stop turning. Got to part it off. Just get my tape off of here. And this guy is ready to complete the bottom and to buff it out. So let me show you how I complete these pieces with the Beal buffing system. We got a nice shine, but I can make it a lot better. And so what I'm going to do is to take the tailstock out of the way, remove the vacuum chuck, and I'm going to set up for the Beal buffing system. This is how I'm going to screw my buffs onto the wood lathe. And here's the system. It consists of 3 wheels. And each of these wheels uses a different compound. Get this out of here so we don't have anything blocking our view. This is called Triple E. It's about an 800 grit bar, which is mixed up with wax and an abrasive material. We do that first. What that's going to do on one of these shiny pieces, it's going to actually dull the finish just a little bit, but it's going to leave the surface very, very smooth. And as soon as that's done, we go to what's called white diamond, which will add the shine. It's much finer grit. And as you see, there's different wheels. And the third one, which is used many times, is a Carnauba wax. Each of these wheels are made up with different types of cloth material. This one's tougher, harder. This one is a little softer, more cotton, less linen. And this wheel here is very soft. And these are unsewn, so they conform easily to the shape of your piece. So I'm going to go through the Beal buffing system here, and then I'm going to show you other options for buffing out different kinds of products back at the table. So here's my buff. I start off with the Triple E. Now the faster I turn this, the harder this wheel is going to feel to the piece of wood. If I go really slow, it's very conformable. So we want to charge it with a little bit. One of the biggest problems I find with this is people put too much on and it gets loaded and waxy. If you have too much on, it'll start smearing and you get the wax coming off onto your piece instead of the buffing effect that you want. which case get a piece of 80 grit sandpaper and sand the face of your wheel and grit that extra stuff off. So I'm going to buff this now. Tool rest is out of the way. I'm about 800 or 900 RPM right now, and I'm going to hang on for all I'm worth because this gets slippery and it can go flying. So I'm just going to buff it around. And what I want to do is not put an edge against that wheel. I want to turn away from the edge like this rather than into it. That prevents me from losing grip on it. And I like to get my finger down inside just for a little better hold. Now, the difficulty with these videos is sometimes we can't get as good a shot as we'd love to be able to do. But for me, I can tell you that some of the shine has gone away. But the feel to my fingers is smooth as glass. It is really great. It's really glass smooth. So let's take this buff off and replace it with the next one. These just screw into the end. You can use them also on a motor. If you have a motor, these things can be mounted. When you buy the kit, it comes with all the different pieces that you need. Back on the lathe again. I didn't mean to take this off, but I did. So we're back on. Now this is White Diamond. It's a softer wheel. Light charge. I tend to run this one just a little bit faster. Bright lights help a lot so I can see where I've been, where I'm going. Got to do towards the bottom here. And I like to do the bottom itself too. See how the wheel deforms when I push it? Because I'm running at a fairly slow speed. That's a glass-like finish. Now, I'm going to wax it. I'm going to wax it, as I said before, to make it feel nice and to protect it even more. Actually, it raises the shine even more. There's different ways to do it. If we use the Carnauba wax system that comes with the Beal, I would screw this on here, charge it with the wax. This is really hard. And so to get this to melt and to go into the wood, we need some speed and we need friction, we need heat. So I'm going faster. And I'll feel the piece getting a little warm in my fingers, and that causes the wax to begin to melt. And I'm going vertically around this. Did the bottom. It's ready for signature and to put out in the gallery. Now, this is shined up. The bottom, you can see how shiny it is around here. This is walnut. For information, what I have done is left the bottom with only a single coat. And I can see in the reflection of the lights all the pores of the walnut showing here. They do not show here where I built my finish. This is approximately 12 coats, one coat at a time, one day at a time, and here's my piece ready to go to the gallery. Beal buffing system, a great way to finish off your work. There's options. There's options on how to mount it. There's options on bowls, to get inside bowls. This doesn't work very good inside of bowls. Let me go back to the back table and show you some of the options of the way the system can be set up. See you at the back table. We're back at the table. I wanted to show you the setups for the Beal buffing system. Now remember I said there was Tripoli, this wheel, comes with a bar. White Diamond comes with a bar. And by the way, it's printed right on the wheels which one goes with which. It says WDIA, White Diamond. This says Tripoli. And this says wax. And here's the Carnauba. Coming with it is this adapter. It has a Morse taper and a sleeve that this piece screws into. If you put this in the lathe and it tends to walk out, many people have made a drawbar to fasten through for the headstock to hold that in. Diehl also makes an extension, so if you're working on something that's very long, we can actually make this bar twice as long. Most of the woodworking dealers carry the whole system and all the accessories. Woodfast has actually made a device like this, which has the screw-on thread on one end and your lathe thread on the other end. This happens to be 1 1/4/8. It comes in other threads. This is the one I used on the lathe. Screw this on, screw the buff on. It seems to be the easiest way for me to do it. This is great for flat things or things that have an outside contour easily to reach. However, what if you're doing a bowl or a closure? There are 3 sets of these balls. Red matches this, white, wax. And they come in different sizes. These also screw on exactly the same way, and these can be bought as additional accessories in different sizes. For really small projects, there's another series that comes like this. You can screw onto here, and they come in different sizes. So there's a lot of options for doing the insides of bowls and vessels. I finished off with the Carnauba wax. That's what comes with the system. Many times I use other techniques. If we come over here, this is Triple E Ultra Shine. This is a wax mixture that's very similar to the Triple E. When I make tool handles and stuff, I will rub this on and polish it out with a cloth. That adds a little shine to it. It acts as a wax finish, and because it has an abrasive in it, it's going to increase the smoothness. I don't want a really shiny finish on a tool handle. I want to be able to hold it. So I use that many times for tool handle projects, and I did use it when we made that video on tool handles. If you want to wax up something and just have a nice wax finish, you know it's not going to last. It's not going to be good for handling. Many people use beeswax. Beeswax goes on nice. It gives a sheen type finish, not ever going to be high gloss. So that's one option. If all else fails, there's nothing wrong with good old Johnson paste wax. Put it on lightly with a cloth. Find a piece of cotton or other soft cloth to buff it out with. Wash your hands first. Get the clean cloth. Wipe that out. And as you know, I tend to use my microcrystalline wax in most cases. I think I like putting it on and playing with the piece after I get done sometimes too. But when you get done with the waxing, use a clean cloth to buff that out. And you might put a couple of coats on and let it sit for a while before you pick it up and handle it. The wax does need to express its VOCs that are still in there. So I hope I showed you a little bit about how I choose to get that high gloss finish on small pieces. Typically it's sanding and finishing, multiple coats until the pores are completely filled and I have a high gloss, and then I buff it off with the Diehl system and end up putting a microcrystalline paste wax on top of that. So I hope to help you, and good luck in finishing your projects. We'll see you next time.